Spirit Halloween made a movie, and it's definitely a movie. It's not good, and unlike most beloved bad movies, it's just not even fun to watch. As someone who's been in the Spirit Halloween community for 14 years at this point and been collecting for 17 years, this film doesn't even satisfy Spirit's hardcore audience. And I'm not just saying that because it doesn't satisfy me, but pretty much everybody in the community agrees that this movie is just not good. So let's talk about it. Just as a heads up, I'm not going to examine every little detail or scene from this movie, so some things will be left out if they're not integral to the story or point that I'm trying to make. I'll start by recapping the events of the movie, and then follow my synopsis with some thoughts and opinions. Just a heads up, by the way, I will not be ragging on the child actors in this movie. As you'll notice throughout the recap, the writing is what kills this movie, not the acting. Mostly. So don't go shitting on the actors here. The movie opens with Christopher fucking Lloyd, Dr. Brown himself, from Back to the Future. He's our villain, and his name is Alec Windsor. He pulls up to an orphanage owned by an unknown woman. Alec wants to do something with the property, but what exactly it is, I didn't even write in my notes because it's not important and it never comes back, but he wants the land and he takes it by force, presenting her with a notice to vacate the property because they're going to take it regardless of her input. Thank God business owners don't do shit like this anymore. This strange woman rightfully gets pissed off and starts saying a bunch of crazy shit that lets the audience immediately know that she's a witch. She casts a spell as her daughter watches cluelessly in the background. The movie's budget then dries up as Christopher Lloyd dies, and from this point on will only be a voice with a few quirky and quotable lines. Except for the one part where he shows up briefly in an orb for some reason, but we're not there yet. And that's the movie's setup. Not off to a bad start, actually. Maybe it won't be as bad as we think. Luckily for us, the movie immediately takes a nosedive from here and never gets its head above the water. We meet our main characters, Jake, Carson, and Bo. This middle school friend group is clearly going through a big developmental phase in their lives, as Carson is very keen on not being perceived as a child anymore and is doing everything he can to be viewed as a badass teenager. He literally fantasizes about being a Sigma male. And this kid actually does a pretty decent job at playing an asshole teenager, because he is without a doubt the most unlikable character in this movie. Jake is our main character, and Carson's foil, as Jake wants to go trick-or-treating like they do every year, but Carson refuses, saying that shit's for kids, and they're above all that now. Bo is the middleman, often fence-sitting and only picking a side when he feels he has to, but he's the only one who really holds the friend group together. Also, he's a nerd, and they will do everything they can in this movie to remind you of that. I hope you guys like hearing the same 3 chemistry jokes over and over, because that's pretty much his entire fucking character.
Okay, next time he's here, say, hey, are you made of copper and trullium? Because baby, you are cute! Copper is CU and trullium's TE.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
It's established early on that Jake's father is dead. His mom remarried to a man that previously had a daughter, so not only does he suddenly have a new dad, he also has a new sister, and Jake fucking hates this. When he's asked to take her trick-or-treating by his parents, he says this.
But I want to be a princess for Halloween.
Princesses suck, so that's stupid. Jake?
God damn, bro. Then we get this scene of Jake at Carson's house, and he runs into his older sister, Kate. We learn very quickly that Jake has the hots for Kate, in a very awkward scene that feels totally inauthentic because of the dodgy writing. I should also clarify that Kate is Carson's older sister and not Jake's, because I just realized I didn't clarify that in the script and that sounded really wrong.
What's this?
Oh, that's probably from Mrs. Tollmeister, my 3rd grade teacher.
Miss Dolmeister? Yeah, I had her too.
You did?
She always hands out apples instead of candy.
Oh yeah, apples and buttons. I guess some things never change.
Can I keep it?
Only if you promise to wear it.
It's not for me.
Hey, not judging. Who knows what you kids are into these days?
After this rough sequence, we get one of many scenes where Jake and Carson are arguing, because that's pretty much all they do throughout the whole movie. For some reason, Carson has modified Nerf guns hanging around in his room, with modded darts that are strong enough to literally put a fucking dent in the wall. So Jake proceeds to hold Carson at gunpoint to go trick-or-treating with him. Remember, he's using the same gun that just put a dent in the wall. Anyway, Jake wants to go trick-or-treating as opposed to the high school party that Carson wants to go to, which his sister Kate was actually invited to. On an unspecified day before Halloween, I'm assuming the day before, Jake, Carson, and Bo attend an event called Fright Night. As Jake is doing his honestly pretty cool vampire makeup, his sister walks into the room and says something so out of left field that it had me and my friends laughing in utter disbelief.
What you doing?
Heading out with my friends.
I'm sorry your dad died because of bone cancer.
As unprompted as that was, I can't even nitpick on this scene because kids genuinely will say shit like that when you least expect it, and they have no filter. So as much as I would love to say, oh, this writing is so bad and all this shit, which I will about many other things, I can absolutely find this one specific moment totally believable because little kids are just like that. However, I do think it just comes off way funnier than they had intended it to. They go to a theater hosting a very rudimentary puppet show recreating the events of Alec Windsor's death, which by this point has become a local legend. After the puppet show, the boys deliberate over the legitimacy of this story, which Jake is a believer of because he's a horror geek and the only person in the group knowledgeable when it comes to the paranormal. When the boys realize they have absolutely no chance of attending that high school Halloween party, Carson still refuses to go trick-or-treating. So, in an absolute stroke of genius, Jake presents his own idea that he thinks Carson will really like, spending the night locked in a spirit Halloween. Naturally, Carson thinks it's badass as fuck. Halloween night arrives and Jake is getting ready to catch up with his friends. He goes to Bo's house first and gets jump scared by his Grandma G. And by her eye and the ominous music that plays whenever she's on screen, this movie really wants you to know that she is an important character. She is mysterious, but unfortunately pretty one note. But she's important, so keep her in the back of your mind. As Bo and Jake make their way across town, Carson catches up with them, and they soon find themselves standing in the parking lot of the Spirit Halloween, where they promptly enter and hide away before the store closes, which the movie does not show them doing. We do, however, get to see where they were hiding, and where they were hiding is nothing I have ever seen in a Spirit Halloween, and Spirit Halloween did not have this structure in the 2021 season, which is when this was filmed. This is where the nitpicks get more intense, because as a Spirit fan, the blatant inaccuracies drive me up the fucking wall. If a random Spirit put up this random-ass cemetery display in the middle of their store, corporate would lose their fucking mind and have an absolute shit fit. Because anybody who's worked at Spirit knows how corporate is about their stores and how particular they need to be set up. So why they even did this and expected people to believe it, I don't know. After getting jump scared by experiment number 4 and the jumping spider, a really out-of-place montage ensues that completely breaks any tension or pacing and tries its best to portray the kids as regular middle school boys, which to their credit feels pretty accurate. I mean, I would do shit like this. But the music is so comically upbeat and out of place, and it comes out of nowhere. And it also acts as the main theme for this movie, and I only found that out because on the DVD version, the menu plays this song on loop over and over and over with this image of Christopher Lloyd in the background. After goofing around, they do some more digging on Alec Windsor and discover the site of his death was only a couple blocks away from the store, and that's when the paranormal activity ensues. That or Henry Hustle was just left on censor. So as this is going on, Kate is getting ready to leave for the Halloween party when she realizes Carson forgot his phone, which might be one of the most unrealistic things about this movie, a middle schooler in 2021 forgetting to bring their iPhone somewhere. I understand that's a nitpick, but come on. Kate goes to Jake's house because that's where Carson said they would be, but upon arrival, she realizes he isn't there, and so she goes to check Bo's house, only to run into Grandma G so she can have another aura farming moment as she tells her to go home and hums a little tune as Kate leaves. Kate then realizes they're staying the night at Spirit Halloween because the boys talked about it publicly in what looks to be a comment section of a post on Instagram. So Kate begrudgingly goes to catch her dumbass little brother. Anyway, the boys start screwing around with this fortune teller that is not a Spirit Halloween animatronic and is just in the middle of this store for some reason. A spirit would never have this, and how it found its way into the movie is beyond me, but it sticks out like a sore thumb and takes away from the novelty of this movie taking place in a real Spirit Halloween that's supposed to feel familiar. Anyway, they question the fortune teller about Alec Windsor, and as they continue to ask things, Alec Windsor just starts to fuck around a little bit and takes some notes from Pennywise. But then, Alec's soul leaves the body of the fortune teller, manifesting as a ball of blue light. and he then possesses Mr. Dark, which leads to the first official animatronic possession of the movie. For those unfamiliar, Mr. Dark was a real animatronic in the 2021 season, and he's actually coming back this year, but that's besides the point. Most of the animatronics in this movie, except for a notable one that we'll get to in a minute, are real. Mr. Dark then grows legs and starts chasing them around the store, and this just looks goofy as hell. There's this moment where Mr. Dark and Jake literally make eye contact as they're hiding, and Mr. Dark just walks away, only for Bo to rip ass and give away their location.
We're skeletons. We've got to be really, really quiet.
Get him!
Jake!
I thought it would be funny!
They then somehow trick him with a mirror that wouldn't work at all IRL because this was set up specifically for the camera, but we'll give it a pass for creativity. When Mr. Dark gets caught off guard, Carson takes the opportunity to rock his shit and literally launches his head off. And then they flee and hide in the back room. As the boys are hiding, Kate makes her way to the spirit and doesn't even try knocking on the front door. So like any rational person, she goes around back and just climbs to the top of the building and breaks in through the roof, with absolutely no solid plan of getting back out, mind you. As she's doing this, Carson and Jake start arguing again because what else would they be doing? Carson is blaming Jake for this because Carson wanted to go to a high school party that he literally had no chance of getting into, and despite agreeing how cool of an idea it would be to spend the night at Spirit, Carson acts like he had absolutely nothing to do with it. But then Kate successfully finds her way inside, and when the boys hear her voice, they head out to find her. As this is happening, Alec Windsor is searching for a new vessel, and he chooses this fuck-ass life-size teddy bear costume that, to my knowledge, Spirit has never sold, and I have never seen them sell anything like it. This possession in particular completely removes me from the movie. Where a lot of bad movies are charming due to the budget constraints, resulting in them to be more creative, this is an instance where it just completely ruins any tension or immersion that the movie was creating. This bear costume is so out of place and conflicts with the rest of the costumes that Spirit even sells and has no impact for fans of Spirit or regular people. Literally, no one gets anything from this whole sequence. So Kate sees this bear walking towards them, and instead of assuming it's a person in a costume like literally anyone would, she asks,
Hey, how is that bear moving?
You don't want to know.
So instead of beating the shit out of this very clearly incapable threat, despite having 3 times the people, they all start freaking out and climb on top of the random display that has never existed at a Spirit Halloween ever, and they try to stack boxes to get out through the roof entrance. After a piss-poor attempt at fighting off the bear, Bo is still stuck on top of the display, and now the others have to save him. So instead of beating the shit out of him, they grab Nerf guns, which Spirit does not sell. Keep in mind, these are not the modded ones that Carson has. They are just using regular-ass Nerf guns. This distracts the bear long enough for Bo to climb down and promptly get captured. And then Kate does this. She could have laid hands on this thing at any fucking moment and chose not to, and the first time she does, she makes a spectacle out of it that's supposed to convey, wow, this person is badass. But do you know how fucking pissed I would be if I was getting manhandled by the ghost of a 70-year-old something racist white guy, and then the one person capable of saving me just started doing bat flips and cartwheels towards me? To her credit, she did land the kick, but, you know, she could have done the kicking first before the Nerf guns and all the other shit they were doing. She could have just did that. So then they reconvene in the back room again, and Jake consults the paranormal encyclopedia his father gave him for answers. And it's here that we learn a very arbitrary and strangely specific universal rule that ghosts can haunt, possess things, and generally just make themselves known for approximately 1 hour on the anniversary of their death. So unlike Five Nights at Freddy's, where you have to survive 6 hours a night for 5 nights in a row, these guys realistically just need to hide for a single hour without getting caught and then just never come back to this area of town ever again. As they're deliberating, Kate finds some floor plans to the building and realizes there's a way out from where they are. This building has a creepy-ass old basement, so naturally they agree to descend and just hope for the best. While this is happening, Jake's mom is starting to become very aware that something just isn't right. She's trying to call Kate, Jake, and pretty much anyone she can think of, but she can't get a hold of them. So like any good mom, she decides she's gonna go out and start looking for them. It's here that Jake's stepdad inadvertently justifies Jake's disdain towards him, because he clearly could not give any less of a fuck that his beloved wife's child is potentially missing.
Jake?
Yeah, he's
just he's not answering his phone, and neither is Lydia.
They're probably all in a candy coma fast asleep by now. He's with his buddies. He's fine.
Cut back to the kids, and they're formulating an escape plan. And it's here that Alec Windsor realizes he needs a stronger vessel. The kids descend the steps and find themselves in a sort of boiler room that contains a desk with a photo of the orphanage from the beginning of the movie. We cut back to the door where Alec successfully breaks through and reveals himself to be possessing Buzzsaw, which leads to this admittedly funny joke.
I need to find one with hands!
So then he goes to pick something else and settles on Nightcrawler, and I have a funny anecdote about this later. As the kids keep going down, it's revealed that there's this massive fucking cave underneath this building, and they accidentally stumble upon the skull of Alec Windsor himself, which is literally just an off-the-shelf skull decoration. So then they have their moment of panic and continue on their way down. During this whole crisis, Jake suddenly feels that it's appropriate to tell Bo that if they make it out of here alive, he's gonna take Bo's advice and finally ask Kate out. Remember this. So then, in true Five Nights at Freddy's knockoff fashion, not only are the animatronics possessed, but they discover a fully intact tiny house in this cave sitting directly underneath the Spirit Halloween. As silly as this all is, I'll admit that this set piece specifically does look really cool. This scene is probably the most interesting in the movie when it comes to setting. It's refreshing being out of the spirit store for a little bit. There's all sorts of creepy things in this little shack, like animal hides and bones, but more importantly, it contains a little mysterious chest that happens to contain the driver's license of Alec Windsor and a handwritten note detailing exactly how they can defeat the spirit of Alec. They have to find 3 things he haunted with glee and burn them all, along with a sacrifice. That sacrifice has to be a personal memento that means a lot to someone. And if they don't do it by midnight, Alec will be able to potentially possess someone for the rest of eternity, assuming he can get to one of them in time. Then, jump scare. The haunted Nightcrawler finds them and starts trying to break in. As they flee, Bo trips and falls on absolutely nothing, and instead of getting up to run, he sits there for a minute while he thinks of a plan. Despite the fact that Alec has had plenty of time to get to Bo, he also chooses to just stand there and watch him, because of course he does. And as Bo's life is in imminent danger, he pulls out a lighter from his pocket and starts begging one of them to throw him a can of bug spray from the backpack. So then, he just burns the fuck out of Nightcrawler. And this is where my funny anecdote comes in. See, in 2021, many companies were of course suffering from major supply chain issues due to something huge that happened in 2020. You might remember it. But in case you don't, 2020 was the year that Splash Mountain was announced it would be converted to Tiana's Bayou Adventure, despite the fact that Tiana herself deserves an original ride because Princess and the Frog is one of Disney's best 2D animated movies. I'm not upset that Splash Mountain was rethemed, I just wanted a good Princess and the Frog ride. Is that too much to ask for? If Universal rethemed this ride, they would have done it properly. Anyway, because of the shipping issues, they were running short on Spirit animatronics for the movie. So one of my friends who happens to live in the area and was very close with Spirit corporate at the time was asked by the team if they could borrow his Nightcrawler for some scenes in the movie, to which he agreed. But the thing is, he never got it back. And now that hindsight is 2020, no pun intended, we're pretty certain it was his Nightcrawler that they lit on fire and destroyed. And if that's the case, that is low-key funny as hell. After burning Nightcrawler to smithereens, Alec appears briefly in an orb for some reason, which I mentioned earlier, and he maniacally laughs so loud that Jake's mom actually hears it, and she also sees this ominous blue flashing in the distance and immediately knows that her son must be involved. While thinking of sentimental items they can sacrifice, Kate hands Jake a locket that she inherited from whichever family member she said it was that I forgot to note down. Then, as Jake is walking around, Alec Windsor quickly possesses a pose and stay skeleton and swipes the locket from Jake's pocket. That rhymed. Jake realizes the necklace is gone, and Carson's actually logical solution is to just use the photo of Jake's dad that Jake is carrying. But then, because it's Jake versus Carson, Jake gets defensive over his dad, and then Carson pulls the "at least you had a dad" card, and then they get into a physical fight. While they're fighting, the spirit of Alec Windsor is literally floating above them, casting this blue-ass light that none of them are seeing somehow. Then, Bo grows some balls and breaks up the fight. Then Carson tries to storm out of the building, but can't because it's spiritually locked down or something? I don't know. Jake finally accepts he needs to sacrifice the photo of his dad, and then the spirit of Alec Windsor knocks some eyeballs off a shelf, and Kate, who is standing completely still, takes one step, trips, and eats shit and almost dies. While she's on the ground, Alec Windsor uses the opportunity to possess her, and we're finally beginning this movie's underwhelming climax. So instead of doing anything productive, Alec immediately uses his new body to try an aura farm by floating around and then trying to intimidate Jake by eating the photo of his dad. Then, Alec hits the fucking jackpot by stealing Jake's very convenient supernatural encyclopedia that I'm sure Alec Windsor is not going to use for anything bad. Then Carson realizes what's happening and rejoins the group after that very brief disbanding they did. And then the boys gear up with some rope, a plastic sword, and one of Carson's own modded Nerf guns that he brought from his house and could have used earlier but wasn't brought out until now. Because of this book, Alec is learning how to control everything in the store, and everything is coming to life and crawling or walking around. Carson then starts epically blasting his Nerf gun, but then the thinkable happens. It doesn't do shit. Meanwhile, Jake is trying to get to Kate from behind as the others distract her. And this whole time, Jake's mom is outside the doors just listening to this shit happen as she's trying to get inside. So as Jake lands the rope next to Kate, he gets her attention by reminding Alec that the body doesn't belong to him. Jake then loudly proclaims,
That body you're in belongs to my girlfriend.
which is supposed to read as this triumphant moment, but only results in making everyone go, what the fuck? Bo gets the loop around her foot, and Jake tugs on the rope, which traps Kate in the air, resulting in Alec losing control over the store. And as the clock is about to strike midnight, the boys gather up everything they need to burn, and so they do exactly that as the clock strikes midnight, and they vanquish Alec's evil spirit just in time. And then this happens.
Backyard camping's for kids.
Jake, I love you. You're my hero, but that is never gonna happen.
I'm your hero?
Oh my god, bro. Then after they leave the store, they run into Jake's mom, who is rightfully pissed off. She tells everyone she's going to take them home, and then Jake asks if he can just walk home with his friends, and after all of that, she just agrees for some reason, and then they get in the car anyway. But not after Kate teases Jake some more. At least this movie is almost over. The ending takes place 1 year after the events that we just saw unfold. Carson and Bo are helping Kate plan their own high school party, and Jake is trick-or-treating with his little sister, who he is now getting along with. Everything's all fine and happy, but then the movie ends with one final twist, as we revisit the underground shack from earlier to find none other than Grandma G performing some sort of seance to keep Alec Windsor's spirit at bay. It's then revealed that she was the little girl from the very beginning of the movie. And that's Spirit Halloween the movie recapped. Let's talk some opinions now. This is not a good movie. Shocker, I know. Typically, I'm a fan of bad movies, as a lot of them can be genuinely fun to watch, especially with friends. But the first time I ever watched this movie was with friends, and they weren't Spirit Halloween friends, they were my normal-ass friend group, and no one had a good time. So it's not only the Spirit fans having a rough time with this movie, it's general audiences too. This movie's biggest problem by far is its writing. It clearly wants to be bigger than the budget allowed it to be, but it doesn't help that so much of the dialogue just feels awkward and stilted. Each character was without a doubt distinct from each other, but that doesn't mean they were well written. They did Kate and Bo dirty in particular. A character is only as smart and capable as their writer, and Bo unfortunately doesn't convince me that he's truly the nerd he says he is. I know he's a middle schooler and that his knowledge is supposed to be a little more rudimentary, but his nerdy quips and fun facts are all extremely surface level to a point where it's just kind of ridiculous, and he just doesn't feel very authentic. He did at least have some character development though, being too soft-spoken in the beginning of the movie to diffuse Carson and Jake's constant fighting, but eventually being able to call them both out. And he also slimed out Nightcrawler, so he gets bravery points for that. Jake was a very boring main character with pretty much no charm whatsoever, but he probably had the clearest and most realistic character arc out of the bunch. Part of that is simply because he is the main character. We get much more time with him to see his dynamics between his stepdad and his stepsister and just about every other character. We get to sit in his resentment towards them and feel how much he misses his dad. Despite Jake lacking interesting character traits, his arc was one of the better parts of the movie. Kate, on the other hand, for as much as I appreciate what they were going for, unfortunately just comes off as pretentious and insincere and only felt present to fill a competent badass type of role. But when she's only a couple years older, talking about how Jake and his friends are just kids and she's this big adult, and she's doing fucking acrobatics against this giant teddy bear and clutching for the team, only to trip on an eyeball while standing completely still, almost killing herself. I mean, they just constantly contradict her character. They want her to be this really badass, competent person, but then they have these very conveniently bad things happen to her and all these quips and things that just kind of make her unlikable. It's a very contradicting thing they're doing with her character constantly throughout the movie. I don't know what they were trying to get across with her. It's like they wanted her to be multiple things at once and just couldn't really put their finger on what exactly it was. And like when she wakes up from her possession, she's just completely chill about it, like nothing even happened. I should talk about Carson, but if we're being honest, Carson has like the least character development and the most undeserved character development throughout the whole movie, because he's just bitching throughout the whole movie the whole time. And then, you know, when he sees his sister get possessed, he's like, oh, you guys are gonna need me. I'm a badass now. And there's really, I mean, like I said, the character development for Carson is kind of just undeserved. There's not much to talk about. The fact that Christopher Lloyd is in this movie is so fucking funny to me, by the way. Like, the opening makes you feel like you're watching a higher budget movie, but as soon as we cut to the kids and start following their story, it's like, oh, never mind, this is a Tubi movie. And I want to reiterate that I am not hating on the kids' performances in this movie. None of them particularly stuck out to me as bad actors, but what did stick out to me, that I've mentioned many times, is the script that they were given. This movie is just so bizarre. It's extremely shallow in many ways despite trying to be deeper. Like, all the elements of a riveting story are technically here, but the movie was written so poorly that so much of it just is genuinely hard to take seriously. The choices of animatronics for Windsor to Haunt was solid. Nightcrawler, Buzzsaw, and Mr. Dark were good picks, but that fuck-ass teddy bear, dude, what were they thinking, and who approved that? This one moment sticks out to me the most because I have such a hard time wrapping my head around how it possibly could have came to be. Also, Grandma G was super underutilized, and I mean, God, I'm getting sidetracked. Listen, this movie is bad. I could write all day about movies I love, but writing for this movie is difficult. If I had to pin down why I think the writing is as bad as it is, I think it has to do with two things. One I mentioned earlier, the events in the script are just too ambitious for a low-budget film. But also, it's painfully obvious that all the children were written by adults who aren't in touch enough to accurately portray how kids their age are acting in the 2020s. They all feel insincere and more like caricatures of what adults think young people are like nowadays. Jake is only the most realistic character because he's so painfully awkward. The bad writing and awkward energy combo that he naturally gives off just kind of works in his favor. It's also the fact that he has the biggest character arc, and that helps make his screen time feel more natural compared to the other main characters. Honestly, I'm just rambling at this point, and I could write more pages about how bad this movie is, but I am not having fun writing this script. This is a very hard movie to pick apart and make a detailed review about because there's so little I enjoy, and it's not even bad in a fun way. So the experience of watching, thinking, and writing for this video have just been bad. But it's okay, I do it for you guys. Thank you for watching. I'm glad you watched this video so you don't have to watch the movie.